An attempt to serve a search warrant ends with an innocent man dead. The story of Doug Harless's death is one we've covered extensively since the night it happened. 1 year later, many questions remain unanswered. Good evening, I'm Samantha Valentino. Thanks for joining us here on WKYT+. Tonight, we're taking a look back at Doug Harless's story and have exclusive interviews, including the first with an officer who was at Harless's home the night he died. This is the death of Doug Harless 1 year later.
Friends that road stand by in the area, shots fired.
Just be advised, this is the OIF.
Just 2 days before Christmas, Doug Harless's family says he was asleep inside his home when nearly a dozen officers surrounded it. The time was 11:50 p.m. Surveillance video from a neighbor captured London police banging on Harless's door and announcing themselves. By 11:51, officers are seen moving around on Harless's porch as others move to different positions around his home. Then, 5 gunshots. The attorneys representing Harless's family say these shots hit his head, heart, right lung, aorta, and pulmonary artery.
It breaks our heart every time we hear them gunshots. We have to watch that every day, knowing our brother was on the other side of that door.
Kentucky State Police initially didn't say whether Harless was armed. 3 days after the shooting, London police said Harless pointed a gun at officers that night. It's unclear whether video showing the moments inside Harless's home before the shooting exists. London police officers weren't wearing body cameras at the time. The department purchased cameras in 2016, but stopped using them in 2023, partially due to cost. Since WKYT's reporting, department policy changed and new body cameras were purchased for all officers. This is 511 Van Zant Road, where KSP says the shooting happened. But according to Laurel County dispatch audio we've obtained, London police were attempting to serve a search warrant for this house, 489 Van Zant.
It's just London PD, 489 Van Zant Road, 489 Van Zant Road. Units on scene, attempt to serve search warrant. Call on the radio for assistance, shots fired. 489 Van Zant Road.
When they got there, did they not communicate with each other of someone, are we at the correct address?
London police policy required officers to confirm they were entering the correct home. Once a search warrant is signed, a supervisor must approve the execution of the warrant. Then that supervisor will either act as or assign a search supervisor. The search supervisor chooses how many officers are needed and what equipment they'll use. They must also positively identify the location. They also assign an entry team leader. This officer can stop the entry at any time if there's any doubt about entering the correct location. A lawsuit filed on behalf of Harless's family says his home was clearly marked and motion-activated lights illuminated the home's marking of 511. They say those lights were working at the time of Harless's death. That night, Kentucky State Police took over the investigation, as is standard practice for shootings involving police. 1 year later, that case remains open.
When you lose someone, you grieve. You take that time to grieve. To us, we can't get that. As long as they're in an open investigation.
We've repeatedly asked for a copy of the search warrant. Every request has been denied. The Laurel County Circuit Court says they still haven't received a copy. Experts tell us this is unusual. Warrants are typically filed with the court immediately after execution. But state police filed their own search warrants to collect evidence in Harless's death. Those warrants revealed what London police were looking for that night: stolen lawn equipment.
I told them on Van Zant Road, there was a weed eater there, and they took it to where they wanted to go with that.
Hobart Buttry is accused of stealing a weed eater and other lawn equipment from a property in Laurel County. He was arrested just after 7:30 on the night of December 23rd, just hours before Harless was killed by police.
And they went to the wrong address, is what that was.
The lawsuit says Buttry told officers he gave the property to a man who'd been evicted from 489 Van Zant Road. We're not identifying that man as he hasn't been charged. Buttry told us he didn't tell police the lawn equipment was at Harless's home.
Everybody knows him, and my whole family knows him. That is sad. That it comes to that over. I hate to say this, but it would never come to that if it wasn't whose stuff it was.
Public records show the lawn equipment was stolen from property belonging to Laurel County Judge Executive David Westerfield. The morning after the shooting, Westerfield called dispatch to speak with an officer about the theft.
They did arrest him last night. They got out with him over in Manchester. I don't know how much I can really say. I don't know how much I can really say about the situation down in Lilly last night.
Well, he wasn't part of that, was he?
Yeah, that search warrant come off of, from my understanding, David, that search warrant come off of his arrest. Because he had said that he had took a weed eater down there to a dope dealer's house there off of Van.
Okay. And the boy was shot and killed, right?
That's my understanding. I'm not very. They've not told us anything about it. So.
Yeah, I understand. No, they called me at 1 o'clock this morning and told me all about it. So okay. I know all about that one.
Someone needs to be held accountable for busting in our brother's door in the middle of the night over a weed eater, quote unquote, and within a minute and 30 seconds shooting and killing him.
And that's why Harless's family says they've hired a team of attorneys and filed a lawsuit against the City of London, the London Police Department, and 9 individual officers. Still ahead, we'll hear from those attorneys along with London Mayor Randall Weddle and for the first time, Police Chief Bobby Day, who was at Harless's home the night he was killed. We're back in 2 minutes. Welcome back in. The death of Doug Harless has undoubtedly changed the Laurel County community. Protesters have repeatedly lined Main Street in London, calling for justice for Doug. Some have accused Mayor Randall Weddle of protecting the London Police Department, something he's repeatedly denied. After several heated council meetings, Mayor Weddle was impeached, but a judge later reinstated him, ruling there was not sufficient evidence to warrant removal from office. We sat down with Mayor Weddle and for the first time Chief Bobby Day to discuss what happened on Van Zant Road on the night of December 23rd.
Nobody wants to get those answers to the people of London, Laurel County, the community, as well as the Harless family more than we do.
Chief Day wasn't chief when Harless died. He was assistant chief of the London Police Department. He was home recovering from shoulder surgery when he got the call the department was involved in a shooting. So
I go to the scene. First thing is making sure that an independent agency worked the case, i.e. the Kentucky State Police, which is consistent with policy. So we had Kentucky State Police officers that were there at the scene and ultimately turned it over to them at that point in time.
Day says he told London police officers to follow protocol.
Don't speak to any of the other officers about what transpired. Don't take place, none of that. We're just going to get everybody back to the police department, and that's where interviews will begin. Those interviews were conducted by KSP. Mayor Weddle says he arrived at the police department around 3 a.m.
I seen men heartbroken, devastated. There's nobody that got any pleasure out of this. You've got human beings that are good men and women serving in this PD, and they're heartbroken. Nobody wants to take a life. You'd have to be demented.
Some community members have claimed Mayor Weddle is protecting the officers involved, saying that's why little information has been released.
Are you scared that if there was wrongdoing, it'll come back negatively on you, so you're trying to protect somebody?
No, absolutely not. I'm man enough that if I have done something wrong or if my administration has done something wrong, then we need to fix it.
Weddle and Day say they're waiting for answers, just like the rest of the London community.
You know KSP, you are a reporter. They're not giving you nothing, just like they're not coming and sitting down and telling me anything, because they're investigating this, it's involving this city. If a valid, factual report comes back from that great organization, the state police, and says wrongdoing was done, heads will roll at that PD.
Are we willing to make both personnel and policy changes if the facts come out and that is what's deemed necessary?
Yes, absolutely.
After WKYT obtained and aired surveillance video of London police officers at Harless's home the night he was killed, people asked us why officers were serving a warrant tied to stolen lawn equipment so late at night and why they needed so many officers to do it. WKYT has yet to see a copy of the warrant, and Chief Day says he hasn't seen it either. But he doesn't know what else, along with that stolen lawn equipment, could have been on it.
Did it also say drugs? Did it also say weapons? Did it also say all those things? Because the response to that investigation or that scenario is based a lot on what was there. Now, to your point, if it was just a weed eater, we'll use that as an example, or if it was just a, something just a, is that warrant? And those things have to be decided after the fact. But was it for lots of stolen equipment? Was it for drugs? Was it for guns? What was it for? And those things figure into it.
I think in my mind, if it was about a weed eater, maybe it was much manpower. But if that warrant says something different, it was for something else, I don't know.
Why there were so many officers there that night is just one of many questions Chief Day says will be answered when KSP's findings are released.
Was there jurisdiction or was there not? Was it a reasonable investigation? Was it not that led up to that? Was there a warrant? Was it signed by a judge? Was that warrant descriptive? How much work did or did not go into it? What circumstances transpired on the porch, at the location? All those things are going to come out.
We knew from police that the officer who shot Harless was placed on administrative leave that night. Their name has not been released, but rumors have swirled that the officer was taken off of leave and even given a raise since the shooting. Chief Day says none of that is true.
That person remains on administrative leave, and that person did not get a raise after this scenario happened.
A large part of this story is the confusion over where this shooting happened. In dispatch audio we've obtained, dispatchers are heard repeatedly saying officers were at 489 Van Zant Road. Harless's home is marked 511 Van Zant Road, but Laurel County PVA Don McFadden says the official structure address is 489 Van Zant. London Police Department policy regarding search warrants say a warrant affidavit should particularly describe the house or place to be searched, including address and physical description of the exterior. Quote, a photo of the location is often an invaluable aid. It should also describe and name any person to be seized or searched. I asked Chief Day if he was serving a warrant and the marking on the home didn't match the address on that warrant, if it would create pause.
My preferred warrant procedure is the number doesn't necessarily tell me where the location is. The description tells me what the house is.
For example, Day says if every house on the block is white, but one is red brick.
It sits 1.2 miles from wherever. It's on the right side of the road. It has black shutters, black roof, blah, 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 blah. Then the numerical, it's obviously applicable, but that just goes along with that.
Day says he believes the test of a good search warrant is whether you could give it to any law enforcement agency and they could find the right place.
With or without a number, can I take that description and go to this house?
I've been to Doug Harless's home and my GPS took me there just fine. So any of these kind of comments, they seem like red herrings.
Ashley Abaray is an attorney at Thomas Law Offices representing the Harless family alongside attorney Thomas Mann.
He left behind 2 daughters. By the time the family heard anything about it, they received a telephone call literally on Christmas Eve saying, by the way, Dad got shot and killed in his home last night.
1 year later, Mann says the family, like the public, still has many unanswered questions. In the meantime, they filed a lawsuit against the city, the police department, and the officers dispatch records show were involved.
Ultimately, this was a botched investigation, a violation of Mr. Harless's rights. They had no right to be on his property. They had no right to search his home. They certainly had no right to barge into his home. and take his life in the way that they did. So we brought claims for violation of constitutional rights, as well as some state law claims related to the duties that they breached, that the London Police Department breached that night, in regards to the investigation and all of that.
There are also claims for the emotional distress the family is going through. The attorneys say they're working off of limited information, but through public records, they've been able to gather some details.
The chatter going back and forth between the first responders is, hey, shots have been fired. They're executing a search warrant at 489 Van Zant Road. They weren't at 489 Van Zant Road. They were at 511.
The lawsuit says the stolen lawn equipment police were looking for was given to a man who used to live at 489 Van Zant.
Based on our research, 489 Van Zant Road is not where their suspect lived either. In fact, he had been evicted. There's public records about that, so we know that the police officers would have had access to that. So whether they were trying to go to 489 and ended up at 511 or whatever that is, the investigation was botched from the beginning for a number of different reasons, namely that 489 wasn't the house either.
The attorneys say Harless lived at 511 Van Zant for about 8 years, and in that time received mail there and had 2 cars registered to that address.
He had 2 cars parked in the driveway. And you know, if you get stopped for an ordinary traffic ticket, they will run your plates to see who that vehicle is registered to, whether it might be stolen. Two vehicles there. They apparently didn't check that.
They say Harless's home was clearly marked 511, something we confirmed in the days after the shooting.
There's no suggestion whatsoever that Doug Harless had anything to do with any crime that was being investigated. He was easily excludable. It truly is just a series of missteps, of not following their own policies and procedures, of not stopping to take a time out to think about what you're doing and the magnitude of it. And, you know, I'm not really sure what the motivating factor is on that. I don't know if we'll ever find it out, but I know Doug Harless had nothing to do with any crime and certainly did not deserve to lose his life in his own home over it.
Further, they say London police were in Harless's neighborhood several hours before the shooting.
They had police officers down there. Raises the question why you didn't go up and knock on someone's door and say, hey, anybody here? You got a stolen weed eater on you? But they didn't do that. But they certainly had an opportunity to confirm where the house that they were searching was located and excluding other houses like Mr. Harless's house.
The attorneys say they believe Harless was in bed when officers arrived.
He was 63 years old. Our information is he was undoubtedly in bed, because his phone was plugged in by his bed. He was dressed as if he were in bed. He was old enough that he understandably took some medication. And then suddenly he is faced with lights being shined through the window, pounding on the door, all over a weed eater.
Surveillance video shows officers banging on the door and announcing themselves as police several times. Mann says officers should have been clearer about who they were and why they were there.
They did not identify what law enforcement they were there, that they had a warrant, what the warrant was for, what the address was. You know, someone could have said, is this 489 Van Zant Road? We are looking for blank. None of that, just pounding on the door. Police come out with your hands up, and then they knock the door down and go in and shoot him.
Instead of celebrating the holidays with their father, Harless's daughters will spend it reliving the devastating phone call they received 1 year ago.
It will be a tough Christmas Eve for the family.
Doug Harless was shot by people that he has called for help before. I mean, you know, not only were you shot in your own home, this is the police. These are the people that you trust, and that I believe he knew some people on the police department. So it's just all the more shocking.
Those who knew Doug and even those who didn't have also called this case shocking. The Justice for Doug movement has grown in the years since his death. A Facebook page devoted to getting answers now has more than 6,000 members. The U.S. Census shows the City of London only has a population of about 7,500 people. There have also been regular vigils honoring Harless and protests demanding justice and changes to ensure another innocent life isn't lost.
For something like that to happen is really disturbing, because if we don't speak up, it could happen again.
What's his name? Doug Harless! What do we want? Justice!
Well, I believe, one community comes together, it might not happen again.
Those efforts continue this week, now 1 year since Harless was killed. After the break, we'll recap where the investigation into his death stands. Stay with us. It's been 1 year since Doug Harless was killed, so where do things stand now? We told you Kentucky State Police were investigating the shooting that killed Harless. KSP tells me the case is now in the hands of a special prosecutor. Their case technically remains open as the special prosecutor could come back to investigators for more information. However, they say the case has reached the point where it's ready to go to that prosecutor. They'll consider whether to file criminal charges. Typically, that would be Commonwealth's Attorney Jackie Steele. However, he told me he asked Attorney General Russell Coleman's office to appoint a special prosecutor in the case. They've assigned it to Commonwealth's Attorney for Russell and Wayne counties, Matthew Leverage. Leverage tells me the case remains ongoing and a decision has not yet been made regarding charges. Now, KSP typically doesn't release the findings of these investigations to the public, but they're subject to open records laws. However, those laws allow the agency to withhold the release of these records as to not compromise the investigation. That's the reason we're told our repeated open records requests for the warrant and other documents tied to this case have been denied. This is a story we followed since the night it happened, and we of course will continue to cover it and keep you up to date as it develops. For Doug Harless's family, Christmas will never be the same. For the Laurel County community, they say trust in those sworn to protect them has been shaken. And for everyone watching, the question remains, how does a search for a stolen weed eater end with an innocent man dead in his home? 1 year later, we're still waiting for answers. Thanks for joining us here on WKYT Plus. Good night.